A nurse thought she had only given a young woman who was about to die a blue notebook, but after the girl died, she opened the notebook and saw that the last lines inside were connected to her own dead sister, and in that moment, her life fell apart. The most striking part of the story is at the end, so stay tuned until the very end. In the meantime, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and write the part that affected you the most in the comments, so we know you're here. Rain pounded Texas City that night. The sound of raindrops hitting the hospital windows seemed synchronized with the heavy heart of a dedicated nurse barely 25 years old, but already exhausted. Her footsteps echoed in the corridors lit by cold lights, while her eyes reflected a weariness, an emptiness she could not name. Mariana was in the middle of another night shift. The last few months had been cruel, endless days, patients coming and going, some recovering, others leaving holes in her soul. That night, it seemed that everything was conspiring to test her limits. An alarm sounded on the upper floor, calling urgently. She responded automatically, but inside, every step was a struggle against the desire to abandon everything and flee to a place where she could simply exist without pain. As she walked, she observed the faces of the patients in the hallways, each facing their own battle. Some people slept deeply, others seemed trapped in their thoughts. Mariana wanted to help everyone, but a voice inside her whispered, "You can't save everyone if you don't help yourself." She paused for a moment by a window in the hallway, trying to catch her breath. The storm outside perfectly mirrored what she was feeling inside. A chaotic struggle with no sign of respite. Mariana clutched the ring that hung on a chain around her neck. She wasn't married, but that ring belonged to her older sister who had died years ago, a constant reminder of why she had chosen this profession. "I promise to make a difference," she murmured in a low voice, almost like a prayer, as she continued with her work routine. Amid the hustle and bustle of the day, the intercom suddenly rang in the break room, interrupting Mariana's rare moments of tranquility. "I need you at reception. A new admission," said the receptionist's firm voice. Mariana looked deeply, running her hands over her tired face. When she arrived at the reception desk, she saw a young woman sitting in a wheelchair covered with a blanket that seemed too big for her fragile body. Graciela was about 30 years old, but her face had a serenity that seemed to belong to someone who had already faced more than she should have. At her side, a gray-haired lady, Doña Teresa, held her daughter's hand tightly, as if she wanted to protect her from something invisible. Mariana noticed that despite the tired look and the smile weakened by illness, there was something intriguing about Graciela, as if her eyes were hiding a secret. When Graciela looked up and met Mariana's gaze, it was as if, for a brief second, she had seen beyond the exhausted nurse. "Are you the nurse who is going to take care of me?" Graciela asked in a soft, almost fragile voice, but one filled with a disconcerting calm. Mariana hesitated before answering, "Yes, I will be here for whatever you need." While they filled out the admission papers, Teresa explained the situation in a tone that mixed pain and acceptance. Graciela was in the terminal stage of cancer. The doctors had recommended palliative care to offer her some comfort in the days she had left. Mariana listened, but the weight of those words seemed greater that night. Taking Graciela to her room, Mariana noticed how the young woman seemed to observe every detail around her, as if she wanted to store everything in her memory. "You seem strong," Teresa commented, suddenly breaking the silence. "But there's something in your eyes, a sadness I know well." Mariana was speechless for a moment. Who was that woman who, even in the face of her own struggle, seemed to see so deeply into people? "But there is something in your eyes, a sadness that I know well," Teresa said, breaking the silence. Mariana was speechless for a moment. Who, even in the midst of her own struggle, seemed to see so deeply into people? When she finally settled Graciela into bed, Mariana noticed that Doña Teresa remained standing next to the bed, holding her daughter's hand as if she were afraid to let go before leaving the room. Mariana took one last look at both of them, a silent question beginning to form in her mind. How can someone be so calm in the face of the inevitable? That same night, as she adjusted Graciela's blankets, Mariana was surprised by a request that sounded as peculiar as it was intriguing. "Nurse Mariana, I wanted to ask you a favor when you have time, and if it's not too much trouble. Could you bring me a notebook and a pen?" Graciela asked, her voice almost a whisper, but full of determination. Mariana looked up, somewhat surprised. "A notebook and a pen?" she repeated, trying to hide her curiosity. "Yes," confirmed Graciela with an enigmatic smile. "I have things to write down, things I need to remember." Mariana hesitated. What could a young woman so close to death want to write? The question made her uncomfortable, but there was something in Graciela's gaze that prevented her from refusing. It was as if that simple request carried a greater weight, something that Mariana still could not understand. Later, as she returned home at the end of her shift, Mariana could not get the request out of her mind. Why did that notebook seem so important to Graciela? Was it a desire to record her memories, a final goodbye, or something completely different? The next day, before starting her shift, Mariana stopped by a small stationery store and chose a simple notebook with a blue cover and a black pen. Although she didn't understand why, she chose it carefully, as if that object had a purpose that went beyond her understanding. When she gave the notebook to Graciela, she was greeted with a smile that seemed to convey more than gratitude. "Thank you so much. I don't even know how to thank you," said Graciela, with a sparkle in her eyes that Mariana couldn't decipher. "What are you going to write?" Mariana found herself asking, unable to contain her curiosity. Graciela just shook her head from side to side, still smiling. "Only things worth remembering." That answer left her uneasy. What did Graciela consider so important that she wrote it down in the last days of her life? At dawn the next day, Mariana entered Graciela's room to check her vital signs. The soft light coming through the half-open curtains illuminated the space, creating a contrast between the cold hospital environment and the delicacy of Graciela sitting on her bed. To Mariana's surprise, the young woman was holding the small blue notebook with visible determination. Although her hand trembled, the pen danced slowly across the pages, leaving words that seemed to cost her every ounce of energy she still had. Mariana stood for a moment at the door watching the scene. It was almost hypnotic. Graciela's expression showed concentration, but also an unusual calmness. It seemed that every word she wrote was a piece of her soul that she left there, carefully molded with black ink. Not wanting to interrupt, Mariana began to organize the equipment in the room, but she couldn't help stealing glances at the notebook. What could she be writing? The question hammered in her mind. Graciela seemed so focused, so connected to that task, that she seemed to be writing something more important than simple memories. "You got up early today," Mariana commented, trying to simulate her curiosity. Graciela looked up for a moment and smiled, the notebook still in her hands. "Some things can't wait." The answer intrigued Mariana, but she didn't insist, despite her desire to ask something. Something inside her told her that it wasn't the right time. She felt that there was a bigger reason behind those words, and that somehow they weren't just for Graciela, but also for someone who didn't yet know they needed them. As she left the room, Mariana couldn't ignore the feeling that something was forming there, something that escaped her understanding. What was Graciela writing down so carefully, even while facing the weight of her illness in the hallways? Mariana's mind was full of questions. She tried to push those thoughts away, telling herself that it was just curiosity. The days passed, and Graciela's presence became a fixed point in the chaotic world of Mariana. Despite her fragility, the young patient seemed to have a strength that contradicted her condition. She smiled more often than Mariana expected, and with just a glance, she seemed to calm everyone around her. Mariana began to realize that visiting Graciela during her breaks had become almost a habit. It was as if that small room with its pale walls and the light scent of flowers brought by Doña Teresa was a refuge from the weight of the hospital. Graciela loved to hear the stories Mariana told about the other patients and the day-to-day life in the nursing station. She laughed softly at some anecdotes and listened attentively when the nurse talked about difficult moments. But Graciela never let the conversation become too heavy. She always changed the subject with a question or an unexpected comment, as if she knew exactly what Mariana needed. "Listen, have you noticed how people here talk to you?" Graciela asked one day as Mariana was arranging the pillows. "How so?" "With respect, but also with affection. That's not common, you know. You make a difference here, even if you don't realize it." Those words left Mariana silent for a few seconds. She had never thought about that before. She felt bewildered but also strangely seen. Over time, the connection between the two became more than just professional. It was something deeper, built in the silences, in the small gestures, and in Graciela's ability to see beyond what was said. But what intrigued Mariana the most was the blue notebook that she now called a diary. Graciela continued to write in it every day, sometimes late into the night. Mariana tried not to think too much about it, but she couldn't help it. What could she be writing there? It was as if the diary were an extension of the mystery that Graciela represented. Deep down, Mariana felt that something was changing inside her. Talking to Graciela made her question things she had buried long ago. How was it possible that this young woman, facing something so devastating, could be so serene? And why did she seem to understand so deeply what Mariana was feeling, even without her saying a word? The night was quiet in the hospital, one of those rare moments when the chaos seemed to give a brief respite. Mariana was finishing the last notes of the day when an alarm sounded on the monitor in Graciela's room. The sharp sound made her heart leap. Without thinking, she dropped what she was doing and ran down the hallways to the young woman's room. When she entered, she found Graciela struggling to breathe. Her face was pale, her chest rose and fell irregularly, and her normally calm eyes were filled with pain. "Doña Teresa, please wait outside," Mariana asked, trying to remain calm as she called the emergency team. Graciela grabbed Mariana's hand with unexpected strength. "Stay with me." Those words, spoken with such difficulty, broke Mariana's heart. She held the patient's hand as she tried to stabilize her, feeling increasingly helpless. The medical team arrived and began procedures, but Mariana remained by Graciela's side, as if her presence could help in some way. After what seemed like hours, the crisis was brought under control, but the image of Graciela so weakened remained etched in Mariana's mind. When everything calmed down, she left the room and sat down on a chair in the hallway, breathing deeply as she pressed her hands against her face. Doubt began to invade her. What if I'm not strong enough? What if I fail her, as I have already failed others? Mariana thought of her sister and how she couldn't save her years ago. The same guilt that motivated her to become a nurse now weighed like an anchor on her soul. Back in the room, Graciela, still weak, looked at Mariana and whispered, "Thank you for not leaving. I knew you would stay." That simple but confidence-filled phrase broke something inside Mariana. For the first time in a long time, she felt tears running down her face while she was on duty that night. When she returned home, Mariana looked at herself in the mirror and wondered, how far can I go? Am I making a difference, or am I just fooling myself? The echo of those questions followed Mariana in the days that followed, but one thing was certain: she couldn't ignore the bond she was building with Graciela. The early morning hours passed quietly in the hospital, but in Graciela's room, the atmosphere was one of calm after chaos. The young patient was visibly weakened, but her eyes were still deep and bright, with something in them that Mariana couldn't explain. Mariana sat next to the bed, delicately holding Graciela's hand, as if she could protect her from something invisible. She still felt the impact of the previous crisis, her heart tightened by the fragility of the patient who, against all odds, smiled at her. "I thought you wouldn't make it," Mariana confessed, her voice low, almost like a secret. It was rare for her to admit something like that, but at that moment it seemed impossible to hide. Graciela squeezed her hand lightly. "You made it. You're here. That's what matters." Before Mariana could respond, Graciela turned her head with difficulty and looked directly at her. "Mariana, there is light in your eyes," she said in a tone so firm that it seemed to contradict her weakness. "Don't let it go out." Mariana froze for a moment, feeling the impact of those words. They were simple, but they resonated inside her in a way she couldn't explain. How could someone so close to death talk about light? And why would she? who felt so consumed by exhaustion and guilt, be described that way? I? Mariana asked with a slight smile of disbelief. Yes, Graciela replied, with a look that seemed to see beyond everything Mariana was trying to hide. You carry something that many people have lost. You may not see it now, but someday you will understand. That conversation stayed with Mariana for a long time. After leaving the room, as she walked through the hospital corridors, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time, a small breath of hope, almost imperceptible, but real. What did she see in me that I cannot see? The question kept running through her mind, as Graciela's eyes, so serene, seemed to be always in front of her. The weeks passed, and the presence of the little blue notebook next to Graciela became as constant as the rhythmic sound of the machines monitoring her vital signs. Mariana couldn't help but observe how every day, even in moments when the weakness seemed unbearable, Graciela would take the diary and begin to write. Her thin fingers trembled as she held the pen, but she continued as if each word were an essential piece of an invisible puzzle. Sometimes Graciela smiled as she wrote. Other times her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't let a single drop fall. It was as if she was carrying something that only she understood, and Mariana felt a knot in her heart when she saw her so focused. One night, while making adjustments in Graciela's room, Mariana couldn't contain her curiosity. She had spent so much time writing, carefully choosing her words. It was something very important, wasn't it? Graciela looked up her gaze, and with the soft smile that had become her trademark, replied, "More than you can imagine." "Can I ask what you're writing?" Mariana dared to ask, trying to sound casual, but feeling the weight of the question. Graciela hesitated for a moment, as if considering whether she should share it. "Let's just say they're things I want to record," she replied, looking away toward the notebook. Moments, thoughts, people. That answer only increased Mariana's curiosity. Who or what was so important to Graciela that she was dedicating her last days to writing it all down? The diary seemed to be more than just a simple notebook. It was as if it held a secret, something that Mariana couldn't quite figure out. Deep down, Mariana felt that this little notebook held something bigger than she could understand at that moment. Something that was somehow linked to Graciela, to that room, and even to herself. 3 weeks had passed since Graciela began writing in the little notebook. During that time, Mariana couldn't get the diary out of her thoughts. Every time she saw Graciela with the pen in her hand, her heart was filled with questions. What could be so important to her? Why did she write with such effort, even when she could barely hold the pen? That morning, while Doña Teresa was having coffee in the hospital dining room, Mariana decided to seize the moment. She approached her, cautiously hesitating before asking, "Doña Teresa, may I ask you a question?" Graciela's mother looked at her curiously. "Of course, dear. What is it?" "Your daughter's diary. She writes so much, even when she is so weak. Do you know what she is writing down?" Doña Teresa sighed, her face clouded with sadness. "I wonder that myself. I asked her once, but she just smiled and said it was for herself, that someday someone would understand." Mariana felt a chill run through her body. Someday, someone would understand. Those words echoed in her mind like an unsolved enigma. Later, while adjusting Graciela's pillows, Mariana gathered her courage and asked directly, "Graciela, can I know what you write in your diary?" Graciela, who was more fragile that day, paused for a moment. Her normally calm eyes met Mariana's with an intensity that seemed to pierce her soul. "It's just something to remember what worthwhile," she replied with a smile so enigmatic that it seemed to contain the secrets of the universe. "But what is worthwhile?" Mariana insisted, her voice low, almost pleading. Graciela just squeezed her hand lightly. "You'll know when the time comes." The answer left Mariana with more questions than answers. She left the room feeling torn between curiosity and the need to respect Graciela's privacy. As she walked through the hallways, Mariana's mind continued to work. Why does she act as if that diary is more than just words? And why do I feel that it is connected to something I cannot yet see? The question remained unanswered, but laden with a silent promise. The mystery would be revealed at the right time. The hospital seemed colder that morning, as if the atmosphere carried an invisible weight. When Mariana entered Graciella's room, she felt an uneasiness she could not explain. The young patient was pale, her breathing slower, and the usual sparkle in her eyes had disappeared. Doña Teresa was sitting next to the bed, holding her daughter's hand, her eyes fixed on the monitor as if every sound could be the last. The blue diary, always present in Graciella's hands, was now abandoned on the nightstand, closed and motionless, as if reflecting the patient's condition. "She's getting worse," said Doña Teresa, with her voice breaking. The doctors said it was a delicate phase. Mariana approached slowly. Her professional experience told her she had to be strong, but her heart was broken. As she adjusted Graciella's blankets, she noticed how fragile the young woman's body looked. In the days that followed, Graciella remained in absolute silence, fighting against the deterioration of her condition. Mariana continued to care for her, but she felt a growing emptiness grew as she saw the untouched diary. Why did she stop writing? Had she lost hope? On the 12th day after her health deteriorated, Mariana sat down next to Graciella's bed during one of her few breaks and looked at the small blue notebook still on the table. It was strange how something so small seemed to carry such great meaning. "You're going to start writing again, right?" Mariana whispered, as if talking more to herself than to Graciella. But the only response was the faint sound of the rhythmic but unstable heart monitor in the silence of the room. Mariana felt tears begin to form. She knew she had to be strong, but she couldn't help the overwhelming feeling of helplessness. It wasn't just Graciella's health that seemed to be deteriorating, but also the silent hope that the diary had always represented. As she walked back down the hall, Mariana wondered what would happen if Graciella never wrote again. What could those already filled pages contain that seemed so important to her? The absence of the diary in Graciella's hands was more than just a detail. It was a reminder of how delicate and uncertain the situation had become. Mariana knew that time was against her, but a part of her heart refused to accept that the diary would remain closed forever. Morning came slowly, with a soft light that seemed to embrace the hospital in a moment of rare calm. Mariana had spent the night awake, unable to leave Graciella's room. Deep down, she knew that this could be the last sunrise they would share. When she entered the room, she found Doña Teresa holding her daughter's hand with desperate strength. Graciella was visibly weaker, her breathing slow, and she could barely open her eyes. Even so, upon hearing Mariana's footsteps, she found the strength to lift her tired but tender gaze. "You're here," Graciella whispered, her voice fragile but enough to reach Mariana's heart. Mariana approached and sat down next to the bed, taking Graciella's other hand. "I told you I would stay with you," she replied, trying to hold back the tears that threatened to fall. Silence filled the room, but it was not empty. It was a silence charged with feelings that did not need words. "Don't cry for me," Graciella said in a faint voice. "I have lived more than it seems, in the little moments with the people I met in you, Mariana." Tears finally rolled down Mariana's cheeks. "There was no way to pray for me," said Graciella in a faint voice. "I have lived more than it seems, in the little moments, in the people I met, in you, Mariana." Tears finally rolled down Mariana's cheeks. There was no way to hold them back. The connection they had forged in recent weeks seemed greater than anything she had ever felt before. "I wish I could have done more," whispered Mariana, her voice broken with emotion. "You did everything," replied Graciella, squeezing her hand with what little strength she had left. "You brought light to my days. Promise me you won't let that light go out. Please. Your light is the same as Elena's." Mariana nodded, unable to speak, squeezing her hand with what little strength she had left. "You brought light to my days. Promise me you won't let that light go out, please. Your light is the same as Mariana's." Graciella nodded, unable to speak. She closed her eyes slowly, as if giving up her struggle with the same serenity she had always had. Her breathing weakened until it stopped completely, leaving a silence that seemed to echo in the room. Doña Teresa sobbed in a low voice, still holding her daughter's hand, while Mariana remained motionless, feeling an overwhelming emptiness and inexplicable gratitude at the same time. "Thank you," whispered Mariana, looking at Graciela as she cried, "for teaching me to see beyond the pain." As the sun continued to rise, illuminating the room with a golden light, Mariana realized that even in her farewell, Graciela had left something eternal, something she still could not fully comprehend, but knew she would carry with her forever. After the body was taken away, Graciela's room, once filled with an almost tangible presence, now seemed desolate. Mariana paused at the door, unable to cross the threshold for a few seconds. Graciela's absence was suffocating, as if the air had been drained from the place. When she finally entered, the sound of her own footsteps echoed in the empty space. The bed was made, and the flowers that Doña Teresa used to bring were already beginning to wilt. But what caught Mariana's attention most was the little blue notebook, still in the same position on the nightstand, untouched, as if it were waiting. Mariana felt a lump in her throat. It was as if the diary carried Graciela's presence with it, a piece of her left behind. The room, once filled with conversation and the patient's serene smile, the patient's room was now a void that seemed to ask questions. She sat down on the edge of the bed with a heavy heart. The silence around her was almost deafening. At that moment, Graciela's absence seemed greater than she could bear. Mariana looked at the diary. Part of her felt that opening that notebook would be an invasion of something deeply personal, a piece of Graciela's soul that perhaps should not be revealed. But the stronger part of her was driven by a desire to reconnect with her. "You'll know when the time is right," she remembered Graciela's words. With trembling hands, she extended her fingers and touched the cover of the diary. She felt the rough texture, as if that small object had carried the weight of all of Graciela's struggles. For a moment, she almost gave up, but the nostalgia was stronger. It was as if Graciela were there, whispering to her that there was something important inside in those pages, something Mariana needed to see. When she finally took the diary, she held it close to her chest for a few seconds, as if she wanted to absorb its meaning before opening it. Why did she want to write and leave this here? Mariana wondered, while the silence in the room seemed to respond with an unsettling calm. She knew that inside that little notebook, there was more than words. There were answers, memories, and perhaps even a part of herself that she had not yet discovered. She was ready for what she would find. The only way to know was to open it and read it. And so, slowly, Mariana opened the first page of the diary, carefully, as if afraid that the pages would crumble at her touch. Black ink filled the lines with delicate, slightly shaky handwriting. Her heart beat faster as she read the first words. "Today, on my first day at the hospital, I finally met Mariana. She seems strong, but I see sadness in her eyes. That I know well." The air left Mariana's lungs as if she had been struck. She reread the sentence, trying to process what Graciela had written. How had she noticed something that Mariana had tried so hard to hide from everyone? And what did she mean by finally? The nurse continued reading, her vision clouded by the tears that formed in her eyes with each line. Graciela had described that first encounter with precision, capturing even the details that Mariana considered insignificant. The way she arranged the blankets, how she looked away when something moved her. She carries something heavy, a kind of pain she doesn't want to share, but I know what that's like. I've been there. Sometimes I see a reflection of myself in her, and that's why I feel we need to meet. Mariana brought a hand to her mouth to stifle a sob. Graciela's words were like a mirror, reflecting parts of her soul that she herself avoided facing. How could Graciela see so deeply even without Mariana saying a word? As she turned the pages, Mariana began to realize that the diary was not only a record of Graciela's thoughts, but also a tribute to the people around her. There were detailed descriptions of small moments, a patient who recovered, a smile that brightened a difficult day, even the way Mariana held her hand during crises. And then she found a sentence that seemed written directly for her. "Mariana doesn't know it, but her strength gives me strength. She thinks she's just taking care of me, but the truth is that she's saving me in a way that no one else ever could." Tears flowed freely now, staining the pages. Mariana closed her eyes and pressed the diary against her chest, feeling a mixture of sadness and gratitude so intense that it seemed to crush her. She had never known that she had impacted Graciela in such a profound way. Yet the words were there, like a silent confession that Graciela had left for her. Why did she leave this for me? Why now? Mariana wondered. More questions arose in her mind, but deep down, she knew that this diary contained more than just memories. It was the key to something bigger, something that was still waiting to be discovered. Mariana was sitting in a quiet corner of the hospital, Graciela's diary still in her hands. The world around her seemed to have disappeared as she read. The words written by the patient who had become much more than just a professional responsibility. Each line seemed like a whisper from Graciela, as if she were still there talking directly to Mariana. The words revealed something the nurse had never imagined. Graciela had seen what even she herself did not dare to admit. There is a pain in Mariana, a shadow in her eyes that makes me want to hug her. Even though I am so weak, I know she would not accept that. I know what it is like to carry something so heavy that it seems impossible to let go. Mariana continued reading, and tears began to fall, warm and silent. No one had ever described her feelings so accurately, and yet Graciela had seen it all. As she held the diary, Mariana remembered all the times she had tried to hide her pain behind a smile. Every night she cried silently, thinking about the sister she lost, and the guilt that never left her. She tried to hold back the tears, but it was useless. Every word Graciela wrote was a reminder that Mariana was not as alone as she thought. And more than that, it was a call to finally face what had been hidden so deeply within her. Why did she see me like that? How did she do it? Mariana asked herself, pressing the diary against her chest. And although the answers were still unclear, she felt that Graciela had left those words as a gift, something to help her find her way. As Mariana continued reading, the following pages revealed a side of Graciela that the young woman would never have imagined. Not only did she write about her own life, but she also observed everyone around her attentively. Mr. Javier in the next room complains all the time, but I realized that he always says quietly when someone changes his sheets. He is kinder than he seems. Nurse Clara is always serious, but today I saw her smile at a child at the reception desk. I think she also carries a heavy burden, but there is kindness in her. Every person in this hospital has something special, even the doctors who are always in a hurry. I see it in small gestures, like when someone holds a door open or offers a cup of coffee. Those little things are what make me believe that life is still worth living, even now. Mariana was impressed by Graciela's ability to see beauty and kindness in the smallest details. It was as if, even in the face of her own pain, she had decided to seek out and record all the good in the people around her. As she read, Mariana realized how much she had stopped noticing after working in the hospital for so many years. She had become accustomed to seeing only suffering, haste, and routine, but Graciela, in her fragility, had managed to find light in the most unexpected places. Could I also see the world this way? Mariana wondered, feeling a mixture of shame and inspiration. The diary was not just a record. It was a lesson, and for the first time in a long time, Mariana felt that perhaps there was still something good waiting for her, something she needed to discover for herself. As she closed the diary for a moment, Mariana felt a wave of memories wash over her like a river of repressed emotions that finally broke down the barriers. Graciela's words echoed in her mind, especially those that spoke of kindness in small, visible gestures. As she sat alone in the empty room, scenes from her own career began to unfold like a movie in her memory. She remembered patients who had passed through the hospital and did not survive. Faces that had previously seemed only part of the routine now emerged with sharper details. The smile of a man who always thanked her. Even on the worst days, the young mother who held Mariana's hand tightly during treatments, and even the most difficult ones, like Javier, who complained about everything but whom she knew carried a wounded heart. I was kind enough. I managed to see in them what Graciela saw. Those questions drowned her. She thought of the times when, consumed by exhaustion, she responded automatically, or failed to offering a word of comfort. Working at the hospital had hardened her over the years, and Graciela, with her gentle and attentive manner, seemed to have noticed it from the beginning. Mariana got up and began to walk down the hallway. Each step felt heavier than the last. She felt a mixture of regret and sadness. How much had she let slip by unnoticed? How many times had she failed to offer something as simple as a smile because she was too caught up in my own pain? When she stopped in front of the window overlooking the hospital garden, Mariana felt tears running down her face again. They were not only for Graciela, but also for all the missed opportunities to do more, to be more for the people who had passed through her life. I thought I was here to save others, but maybe they were the ones saving me. That revelation left her shocked, but it also brought a ray of hope. Graciela's words continued to echo in her mind. You brought light to my days. Perhaps there was still time for Mariana to forgive herself and find a way to bring that light back, not only for the patients, but also for herself. With the diary still in her hands, Mariana made a silent promise. I will not let any more opportunities to make a difference pass me by, even if it is something small. I will see people the way you saw them. As she continued reading Graciela's diary, Mariana felt more and more connected to her. The following pages contained such profound reflections that they seemed to pulsate with life, as if Graciela were still there, telling her stories. The disease took many things from me. It's true. My body is no longer the same. My days are numbered, and the dreams I had for the future have become impossible. But in the midst of all this, I learned something I never imagined. Life is not about big plans, but about small moments. Mariana felt the impact of those words like a punch in the stomach. She read on, unable to stop. Beauty is in the details. A sincere smile in the middle of a difficult day. A kind word that seems insignificant, but can change everything. A hand holding mine when I feel like I can't go on. Those are the moments that make life worthwhile, and I see them everywhere. Mariana remembered how Graciela always found a way to smile. Even on the worst days, even during crises, she was grateful, made a light-hearted comment, or looked at Mariana as if she wanted to convey calm. How could she see so much beauty in such a devastating moment? The time I have is not much, but it is enough to notice the things that are worthwhile. I don't want anyone to feel sorry for you, because I have already lived more in these days than many people live in a lifetime. I found joy in things I didn't even notice before. Life is made up of those moments. Mariana closed her eyes, letting the tears fall. She felt a deep admiration for Graciela mixed with regret for not having asked her more about how she managed to see the world that way. But as she reread the words, something began to form inside her. Graciela wasn't just leaving a record for someone fined by chance. She had written those words for someone, for Mariana, as if she knew that the nurse needed them to see what she had lost in the chaos of work and life. I will be able to see life as she saw it, Mariana thought to herself, holding the diary tightly. At that moment, Graciela's words were not only a revelation, but an invitation for Mariana to allow herself to see the beauty in small gestures and kind words and seemingly simple moments. The pages of Graciela's diary continued to reveal secrets that seemed increasingly closer to Mariana. Each word was like a thread that pulled at her own soul, connecting her not only to Graciela, but also to herself. Then, amid reflections on moments and people, Mariana found a page that seemed different. The words were longer, deeper. Something in that writing felt more intimate, almost as if Graciela were speaking directly to her. Mariana is much more than she seems. She enters the room as if she were carrying the world on her shoulders, but she still finds room to carry others. She doesn't know it, but her sweet smile and kind words saved me on the most difficult days. Mariana felt a lump form in her throat. She paused for a moment, unable to continue as the words echoed in her mind. She doesn't. But her sweet smile reminded her of all the times she felt that her work made no difference. All the nights she wondered if she was in the right place, if her actions really mattered. But there was Graciela, making it clear that they did. On the days when the pain seemed unbearable, it was she who made me want to try again. It wasn't just the medication or the care. It was the way she looked at me, as if she believed I was still more than a patient in a bed. Mariana saw something in me that I often couldn't see myself. Maybe I'll never know how much that meant to me. Tears began to fall as Mariana read and reread those words, the image of Graciela smiling at her. Even on the worst days, she came back with full force. She believed in me more than I believed in myself, Mariana thought, as she pressed the diary to her chest. It was as if Graciela had left those words not only to comfort her, but to teach her to value herself, something that Mariana had long forgotten. How could she see that in me when I couldn't see it myself? The question echoed in her mind, but at the same time, she felt that Graciela had already given her the answer. The light that Graciela saw in Mariana had never disappeared. It just needed to be rediscovered. At that moment, Mariana understood that although she had dedicated her life to saving other people, it was Graciela who had saved her. The impact of Cella's words in the diary opened a wound that Mariana had been struggling to keep closed for a long time. As she held the little blue notebook, memories began to surge like a whirlwind, dragging her back to a time she preferred to forget. Mariana was just a teenager when her older sister Elena was diagnosed with cancer. Elena was the pillar of the family, the person who always made everyone laugh, even on the most difficult days. But the disease consumed her quickly, and the last few months were marked by hospitals, medications, and a kind of suffering that Mariana had never understood before. She remembered the nights she sat by Elena's bed, holding her hand, and promising her that everything would be okay, even when she knew it wasn't true. She remembered her sister's weak smile and her words, so similar to Graciela's. "You have something, Mariana, a light that you can't let go out." And then the day came when Elena left. Mariana still remembered the overwhelming feeling of helplessness, the emptiness that remained, and the guilt that began to grow like a shadow. Mariana closed her eyes, holding Graciela's diary tightly. The same question that had tormented her since Elena's death came up again. Could I have done more? That was the guilt she now realized that had pushed her into nursing. She had decided almost impulsively that she would devote her life to saving other people, as if that could erase what she had failed to do for her sister. But that decision also brought a weight that Mariana had never admitted. Every patient she couldn't save was a reminder of Elena, a confirmation that she would never be enough. And Graciela, with her serenity and her ability to see what was hidden, had seen that pain in Mariana's eyes from the first day. "You have light in your eyes. Don't let it go out." Graciela's words echoed in her mind, now connected to Elena's words from years ago. Mariana realized that she had been carrying the guilt like an anchor, and that prevented her from seeing the light that both women had recognized in her. But what did it mean not to let that light go out? As she looked at the diary, Mariana understood that perhaps the answer was in the pages she had not yet read. Perhaps Graciela had left more than words. Perhaps she had left a path for Mariana to finally free herself from the weight she had been carrying for so many years. Mariana sat on her bed that night with Graciela's diary on her lap. The words resonated like a call she could no longer ignore. Graciela had found beauty in the smallest gestures, even in her most difficult moments, and that had transformed her. Transformed. I can do that too, Mariana thought, feeling a spark of genuine hope for the first time in years. She realized that for so long, she had focused solely on doing her job as a nurse, but not on really seeing people beyond their conditions. The next day, Mariana returned to the hospital. The environment that had previously seemed gray and repetitive now had a new layer of meaning. She began to observe the faces around her. Patients, family members, colleagues. They were not just part of the routine, they were stories waiting to be seen. When she entered the room of Javier, a patient known for his difficult character, Mariana decided to act differently. Instead of just taking his vital signs and adjusting his equipment, she paused for a moment. "Good morning, Javier. How are you today?" she asked in a softer voice than usual. He muttered something inaudible, but she noticed a slight hesitation before he turned his face toward her for the first time. Mariana saw something beyond the usual irritation, a deep tiredness, perhaps even sadness. In the hallways, She began to notice things that had previously gone unnoticed. A nurse helping a colleague without anyone seeing, a child holding his grandmother's hand tightly while smiling, a doctor who, although in a hurry, took a few seconds to reassure a patient. Those moments, so small but so full of meaning, began to transform the way she saw the hospital and the people around her. If Graciela could see this, even on her worst days, so could she, Mariana thought, feeling that this new way of looking at the world was somehow a tribute to the patient who had changed her life. Mariana promised herself that she would always try to see the good in people, even when it was difficult, even when fatigue threatened to overwhelm her. Graciela had not only left a diary, she had left a legacy, and Mariana was determined to honor it. That night, at the end of her shift, Mariana looked up at the starry sky and whispered, "I promise, Graciela, I'll try. I'll see people the way you saw them, and maybe someday, I'll also be able to see myself the way you saw me." Mariana couldn't get Graciela's diary out of her mind, yet she felt that the notebook should be returned to Doña Teresa, Graciela's mother. Perhaps it was the only tangible piece of her daughter that remained. After her shift, Mariana went to Doña Teresa's house. The neighborhood was simple, with rows of houses and small, well-kept gardens. Graciela's mother opened the door with a sad but welcoming smile and invited her in. Sitting in the living room, Mariana took the diary out of her bag and placed it on the table between them. "I thought you might like to have it. Graciela wrote such beautiful things. You should keep it." Doña Teresa took the diary, running her fingers delicately over the cover, her eyes filled with tears, but she shook her head slowly. "No, my dear, this diary is not for me," she said in a soft but firm voice. "My daughter told me before she left that this notebook was for you. She said she specifically asked you to buy it because she knew it would be yours at the right time." Mariana was speechless. "She said that?" "Yes. She said you were special, that she wanted that hospital and to have you as a nurse, and that there was a light inside you that needed to be awakened. She believed this diary could help you find something you might have lost." Mariana's heart tightened. Graciela had planned everything, even knowing that her time was running out. The diary was not just a record, it was a gift carefully thought out for Mariana. Doña Teresa took Mariana's hands tightly. "Please keep it. It's what my daughter wanted, and somehow I think she knew how important it would be to you." With tears in her eyes, Mariana nodded, feeling the weight of the moment. Why did she believe in me so much? The question echoed in her mind as she put the diary back in her bag, feeling that the story was not yet complete. Back in her apartment, Mariana sat down at the table with the diary in front of her. Doña Teresa's voice still echoed in her thoughts. "I knew it would be yours at the right time, but what did that mean? Why did Graciela, who had so little time, devote so many words and thoughts to someone she barely knew at first?" Mariana began to flip through the pages again, looking for clues. Every sentence seemed loaded with meaning, as if Ella knew exactly what she wanted to leave her. "Everything has a reason, even pain," said one of the pages. That phrase stuck in Mariana's mind. Graciela seemed to believe that even the most difficult moments had a purpose. But what was the purpose of all this? As she looked at the diary, Mariana wondered what Graciela knew about her that she still couldn't see. She felt that the answers were there, hidden between the words, but she also knew that she would need more than just reading the diary. She needed to revisit what connected her to Graciela in such a... And for that, she would have to face not only Graciela's life, but also her own history. The diary was a gift, yes, but it was also a mystery that Mariana still needed to solve. The next morning, Mariana walked through the hospital corridors with slow but steady steps. Everything seemed the same tired faces of her colleagues, the noisy monitors, the distant sound of conversations. But something inside her had changed. Graciela's diary had transformed her way of seeing the world. Every word written in that notebook seemed to have illuminated a part of her that had been in darkness for a long time. Now she wanted to be more than just efficient at her job. She wanted to make a difference in the same way that Graciela had done for her. Passing by Mr. Javier's room, Mariana decided to stop. She used to be brief with him, responding to his complaints with limited patience. But now there was something in his eyes that Mariana could no longer ignore. Sadness mixed with a deep loneliness. "Good morning, Javier," she said with a kind smile. "How are you?" Today, he muttered something inaudible, but Mariana stayed, adjusted his pillow, and asked, "You know, I've never asked you what you like to do when you feel well. Read, fish, play dominoes?" Javier looked up, surprised for a moment. The muttering disappeared, replaced by doubt. "I liked to fix things, especially watches. It was complicated, but always worth it." "Watches? How incredible," said Mariana, genuinely interested. It must be a gift to have that patience and skill. Javier smiled slightly. It was the first time Mariana had seen him like that. As the day progressed, she began to notice other details, such as the way Nurse Clara always arranged the patient's blankets, even when she was in a hurry, or how an elderly patient would sing softly to calm another. How they always stopped to play with the children, waiting in the reception area. Each gesture seemed small, but now Mariana could see how big they were. She remembered Graciela's words in the diary. "These are the things that make life worthwhile." During a break, Mariana went to the window and watched the movement outside. She took a deep breath, feeling a lightness she hadn't felt in a long time. For the first time, she wasn't just caring for patients. She was experiencing moments, seeing people as they truly were. This is what Graciela wanted to show me, Mariana thought. Life is more than just passing the days. It is seeing, feeling, and valuing what seems invisible. The hospital was still a place full of challenges, but now, for Mariana, it was also a space full of possibilities. Graciela had planted a seed, and Mariana was determined to let it grow. In the afternoon, a new patient was admitted to the hospital. When Mariana read the patient's file, she felt a pang of familiarity when she read the name Héctor Ortega. He had already been in the hospital several times, known for his difficult character and his refusal to cooperate with treatments. Upon entering the room, Mariana found a man with a face hardened by time, with deep wrinkles that seemed to carry more than just age. Héctor was sitting on the bed, with his arms crossed, and his gaze fixed on the window, as if he wanted to be anywhere but there. "Good afternoon, Mr. Héctor," Mariana said in a friendly tone. He didn't even look at her. "So what now? You've already taken my blood and asked me questions. I just want to be left in peace." The rejection was direct, but Mariana didn't back away. She recognized something in his eyes, something she had seen before, a pain that was not only physical. "There's something behind that rudeness," she thought. "I understand that you prefer to rest," she replied, maintaining her calm. "I just came to make sure you're comfortable and that you don't need anything for now." Héctor muttered something inaudible, but Mariana was not discouraged. As she adjusted the sheets and checked the equipment, she noticed the signs. His eyes avoided hers, but they were filled with tears. His hand trembled slightly as he held the sheet, as if he needed something to anchor his frustration. "If you need anything, I'll be nearby," she said, before leaving the room. In the days that followed, Mariana returned to Héctor's room. Although he continued to reject her attempts at conversation, there were moments when he was especially abrupt. But she did not give up. She remembered Graciela's words in the diary. Sometimes people do not show their kindness right away, but it is there, waiting for someone who does not give up on them. Each visit was a small step, adjusting the pillow, a friendly greeting, a comment about the weather. Although he remained resistant, Mariana began to notice small signs of change. One day, while checking his vital signs, Héctor finally broke the silence. "Why are you so insistent?" he asked in a voice laden with exasperation but also curiosity. Mariana smiled a genuine smile because she believed that everyone deserves to be seen, even if they don't ask for it. Héctor was silent for a moment, as if trying to process those words, but he did not respond. Mariana felt that something was beginning to stir, albeit slowly, behind the wall he had built over the years. Mariana walked through the hospital corridors with a serene face, but a mind full of thoughts. Héctor was a challenge, and every interaction with him seemed to hit an invisible but almost impenetrable barrier. Any other professional would have given up. But Mariana could not ignore Graciela's words. Engraved engraved in her heart. Sometimes people just need someone to insist that they see the good that they themselves have forgotten. When she entered Hector's room that morning, she found him as usual, staring out the window, arms crossed as if trying to keep the world out of his life. However, Mariana decided to change her approach. "Good morning, Hector. Today I have a difficult question," she said with a slight smile. He raised an eyebrow but did not respond. "If you could be anywhere in the world right now, where would it be?" Hector hesitated, as if the question were absurd. "Why does it matter?" he muttered thoughtfully. "Because it matters to me," Mariana replied calmly. "I'd like to see that place through your eyes." He looked away, but she noticed that something broke in that instant, even if only subtly. Mariana knew it wouldn't be a quick change, but Graciela had taught her that small gestures could open doors that seemed closed forever. In the days that followed, Mariana tried hard to find something positive. Even in Hector's curt responses, when he complained about the tea, she smiled and said, "I'll look for a better brand." When he avoided answering questions, she left him alone but came back later with a new approach. After weeks of resistance, something changed one afternoon while he was adjusting the heart monitor. Hector broke the silence on his own. "You know, my wife used to ask me questions like that," he said in a low voice, but full of emotion. Mariana stopped, surprised. "What questions?" "About where I would like to be. She said I always seemed to be stuck somewhere else, even when I was by her side." He sighed and looked at his now trembling hands. "She died 2 years ago, and I was a terrible husband. I was always busy, always thinking about everything except her. When I realized it, it was too late." The words came out like an avalanche, and Mariana felt the weight of the pain that Hector carried inside him. It was the first time he had shared something so personal, and she knew that moment was a turning point. "Do you feel like you didn't do enough?" Mariana said. Avalanche and Mariana felt the weight of the pain Hector carried inside. It was the first time he had shared something so personal, and she knew that this moment was a turning point. "You feel like you didn't do enough," Mariana said softly, without judging him. Hector looked up at her with tears he was trying to hold back. "I didn't. And now, no matter what I do, I can't erase that." Mariana sat down next to the bed and took his hand. "I understand that guilt, Hector. It's heavy, and it seems like it will never go away. But you know, someone taught me that pain can also transform us, that there is still room to do something good, even after so much time has passed." For a moment, Hector was silent, and then he nodded slowly, as if trying to accept those words. That day, something changed between them. Hector began to open up little by little, sharing memories of his wife, his mistakes, his pain, and in return, Mariana shared parts of herself that she had never before revealed to anyone at the hospital. Time passed, and the bitter Hector that Mariana had known seemed to begin to crumble, revealing a version of himself that he had perhaps forgotten existed. The barriers he had built over the years were slowly weakening, and with that, something new, or perhaps something old, began to emerge. One morning, when Mariana entered his room with her usual, "Good morning, Hector," something unexpected thing happened. He smiled, not a full smile, but a slight movement of his lips, enough to convey a change. "Good morning, nurse," he said, and his voice sounded softer, less defensive. Mariana tried to contain her surprise, but her heart was filled with warmth. That smile was a gift, because if it was, she accepted it with great joy, she joked, eliciting a slight laugh from Hector. It was the beginning of something different. In the days that followed, he began to express gratitude for small gestures. A pillow adjusted, a conversation to pass the time. Even Mariana's patience with his old complaints, each thank you, was a small step toward the light, a movement that not only transformed Hector, but also touched Mariana deeply. One afternoon, while Mariana was adjusting the equipment next to the bed, Hector suddenly spoke. "You know, I never imagined that someone could make me feel so seen again." She stopped and looked at him, trying not to let tears form in her eyes. "It's because you're important, Hector. Maybe you haven't noticed it yet, but your life has meaning for me, for this place. He looked away, visibly moved. You believe that? Even with everything I did wrong? I believe it, Mariana replied, with a firmness that even surprised her. That night, as she walked home, Mariana felt the weight of Graciella's diary in her bag. Graciella's words echoed in her mind. Even pain has a purpose. It can change us, shape us. It was as if Graciella were guiding her every step at that moment, as if her kindness and her vision of the world were being transmitted through Mariana to those who needed it most. Thank you, Graciella, Mariana whispered, looking up at the starry sky. She knew that even though Graciella was gone, she was still there, breathing in every gesture, every word. Hector was no longer just a difficult patient. He was a living reminder that kindness, patience, and love have the power to heal not only the body, but also the soul. That night, after a shift full of meaningful moments with Hector and other patients, Mariana sat at the table in her small kitchen. Graciella's diary was in front of her, a silent companion she could no longer ignore. As she turned the pages, her hand stopped at a phrase written in firmer handwriting, as if Graciella had put all her emotional weight there. Everything has a reason, even pain. Mariana read and reread those words, feeling a chill run through her body. It seemed that Graciella was trying to say something deeper, something that Mariana still couldn't quite understand. Why did she believe in that so much? Mariana wondered. The pain she had carried for years since the loss of her sister always seemed meaningless to her. However, Graciella saw a purpose in the pain, driven by the need to understand more about the woman who had transformed her life. Mariana decided to look for Doña Teresa again. Perhaps by learning more about Graciella's life, she could finally discover what those words meant. The next day, after her shift, Mariana took the bus to Doña Teresa's house. On the way, she looked at the diary in her bag and felt a mixture of anxiety and expectation. She knew that this encounter would bring answers, but she had no idea how those answers would change her way of seeing everything. Doña Teresa opened the door with the same warm smile as before, but her eyes showed a pain that time had not yet erased. She welcomed Mariana with a hug, which surprised the nurse. "You have a good heart, Mariana. My daughter always knew that," said Doña Teresa as she led her into the house. It was simple, but full of details that told stories. Framed photographs were scattered across the walls, and small decorative objects filled the shelves, each one seeming to have a special meaning. "Graciella loved this house," said Doña Teresa, with a melancholy tone. "She always said that everything that mattered was here." Mariana looked at the photos. Graciella appeared in several of them, always smiling, always with a look that conveyed a serenity that Mariana recognized so well. Doña Teresa led Mariana to a small room at the end of the hallway. The atmosphere was cozy, with light-colored walls and simple furniture. In one corner, an old bookcase held books and boxes arranged with care. "Graciella kept many things," said Doña Teresa with a sad smile. She said that each object told a story, and that stories needed to be remembered. She took a wooden box from one of the compartments on the bookcase and placed it on the table. Mariana felt a wave of anxiety and curiosity as Doña Teresa opened it. Inside were letters tied with ribbons, small objects such as brooches and keychains, and what seemed most precious, a collection of carefully organized photos. Mariana began to explore the contents. Each object seemed to carry a piece of Graciella, a memory, or an important moment. A handwritten letter caught her attention. When she opened it, she saw that it was a message that Graciella had written for herself years ago. "Remember that love is never lost. Even when people leave, it transforms and finds new ways to exist." The words were so deeply moving that Mariana had to pause for a moment. She knew that Graciella wrote from the heart, but those phrases seemed destined for her, even before they met. Doña Teresa then pointed to a small envelope separate from the rest. "Open this," she suggested. Mariana opened the envelope and found a photo that took her breath away. It was Elena. She was younger, healthy, with a radiant smile that Mariana had almost forgotten. Next to her was Graciella, laughing with the same serene look that Mariana knew well. The two were embracing, as if they were soulmates in a moment of joy captured forever. Mariana felt tears running down her face before she realized she was crying. She held the photo carefully, as if it were something sacred. "They were inseparable," said Doña Teresa emotionally. "When Elena left, it was as if a part of my daughter had also left. I think that's why Graciela saw so much of Elena in you. She always said you had the same sparkle in your eyes and the same heart." Mariana looked at the photo again, feeling a connection so deep it was almost inexplicable. It was as if her sister had found a way to take care of her even after her departure, through Graciela. She knew everything. "You all knew," Mariana murmured more to herself than to Doña Teresa. "Graciela knew who I was, who I had lost, and yet she never told me. She just took care of me." Doña Teresa put a hand on Mariana's shoulder. "Maybe she knew you needed to discover it on your own, and somehow she managed to be there for both of you, even if only for such a short time." Mariana pressed the photo to her chest, feeling the presence of Elena and Graciela at the same time, there in that little house full of memories. Something inside her finally began to heal. The revelation that Graciela and Elena had been childhood friends left Mariana completely shocked. Everything began to fit together in a painfully clear way. Graciela's words, her way of seeing so deeply into Mariana, the immediate connection that seemed inexplicable, now made sense. Mariana held the photo of the two of them as her mind traveled back to the days when Elena was alive. She remembered the stories her sister told about a special friend, a girl who always made her laugh, and who had a heart bigger than the world. "She always talked about a friend," Mariana whispered, looking at Doña Teresa, but she never knew who it was. Her sister told about a special friend, a girl who always made her laugh, and who had a heart bigger than the world. "She always talked about a friend," Mariana whispered, looking at Doña Teresa, "but I never knew it was Graciela." Doña Teresa nodded with tears in her eyes. "Helena was like a sister to my daughter, and when she left, it was as if Graciela had lost a part of herself, but she never stopped talking about her with such love." Mariana realized that the bond between them had begun long before they met, as if Graciela had been sent by Elena to help her cope with her pain. The way Graciela seemed to know exactly what to say, how to understand Mariana's wounds, was no longer a mystery. All this made the diary even more important. Graciela had carried not only her own story, but also Elena's, and now it seemed that she had passed that legacy on to Mariana. With a heavy heart, Mariana knew she had to reread the diary. She felt that in the remaining pages there was something more, a message that Graciela had left for her to discover at the right moment. Back in her apartment, Mariana opened the diary once more. Her hands trembled as she turned the pages, reviewing the words that had already changed her life so much. But it was on the last page that she found something took her breath away. Graciela's handwriting seemed more careful, as if she had placed each letter with intention and love. "Everything I learned from your sister, I passed on to you. She was the best person in the world, and she loved you more than anything in life. And you know what else? She was right about you. You have a light that can never be extinguished, and that is what will transform the world around you." Tears began to fall as Mariana read those words. It was as if Graciela and Elena were speaking to her at the same time, united by the love they both shared. She remembered all the times she had doubted herself, the guilt she carried for their deaths, fall as Mariana read those words. It was as if Graciela and Elena were speaking to her at the same time, united by the love they both shared. She remembered all the times she doubted herself, the guilt she carried for Elena's death, and how she always felt it was never enough. But now, reading that message, something changed. Mariana realized that everything Graciela had done, from giving her the diary to the words she left behind, was to help her find her way back to herself. At that moment, Mariana pressed the diary against her chest and whispered, "Thank you, Graciela. Thank you, Elena. I promise to honor everything you taught me." The pain was still there, but now it was accompanied by a promise. Mariana knew she was not alone, that the love of Elena and Graciela would continue to guide her steps. For the first time in years, she felt she could begin to forgive herself and finally move on. That night, As she hugged Graciela's diary to her chest, Mariana felt something different. The pain that had accompanied her for so many years, the guilt over Elena's death, the feeling of not being enough, the emptiness that seemed to grow every day, now seemed lighter, almost bearable. It wasn't that the pain had disappeared, but now it had meaning. Everything has a reason, even pain. Graciela's words echoed in her mind, like a melody that finally made sense. Mariana realized that suffering did not have to be a prison. It could be a starting point, something that shaped her, that taught her to see the world in a deeper way. Looking out the window, seeing the city lights shining like stars, she whispered to herself, "My pain is not the end. It is the beginning of something new." The next day, Mariana sat down at her desk and began to write as if each word were a step toward healing. "Today I saw Mr. Hector. He laughed for the first time. He told me about his wife and how she loved sunsets. I was moved because for a moment he seemed to remember that there was still beauty in the world. A child brought flowers for his grandmother today, and his smile lit up the entire hallway. Small gestures like this remind me that kindness is always around us, waiting to be noticed." Mariana began to record not only the beautiful moments she witnessed in the hospital, but also her own reflections. It was as if, by writing, she was learning to see life through the eyes of Graciela and Elena, finding light even in the darkest places. "Graciela taught me that life is made up of moments, and those moments, even the small ones, have the power to change everything. Today, I choose to see the beauty that has always been here." Writing became a ritual, a daily reminder that life was full of possibilities. Even in the midst of pain, with the passing of the weeks, the changes in Mariana became visible to everyone around her. The patients looked at her differently, as if her presence brought not only medical care, but also a quiet peace. "Nurse Mariana always has a smile for us," commented an elderly patient, taking her hand. "It's as if her light illuminates the most difficult days." Her colleagues also noticed the transformation. Clara, a nurse known for her seriousness, approached her during a break and said, I know what happened to you, but you inspire us. I've never seen the patient so calm. It's as if you bring something we had all forgotten." Mariana smiled, feeling the impact of the words. "I just learned to look at the world in a different way," she replied. Every little gesture, every smile, every word of comfort seemed to have a greater purpose. Mariana had become an inspiration in the hospital, living proof that even the most wounded hearts can find healing and spread love. Graciela and Elena were no longer physically by her side, but Mariana knew she carried them with her in every action, and somehow she felt they continued to guide her, reminding her that her light could never be extinguished. The sky was tinged with a soft gray as Mariana walked through the cemetery, holding the blue diary to her chest. The cold wind blew lightly, moving the trees around her. As she continued along a familiar path marked by memories that still weighed heavily on her heart, she first arrived at Elena's grave, where freshly placed flowers adorned the tombstone. Mariana knelt slowly, feeling the weight of the years of absence and the still living presence of her sister in her soul. "Hello, Elena," she began, her voice breaking. "It's been so long, but it seems like yesterday when I lost you. For years I felt that I hadn't done enough for you. I carried that guilt like a weight that never lessened. But now I see that you have always been with me, even after you left." She placed the diary on the ground on the soft grass. "This diary brought me back to you. It was through Graciela that I managed to remember what you always tried to teach me, that love is stronger than any pain." Mariana closed her eyes and took a deep breath for a few seconds. She felt as if Elena were by her side, holding her hand, as she always would do in difficult times. After a few minutes, she got up with the diary and walked to another grave a little further ahead. Graciela's tombstone was simple, but there was something special there. Colorful flowers carefully arranged and small objects left by those who visited her. "Graciela," said Mariana, kneeling down again. "You saw me when even I couldn't see myself. You carried the pain of losing Elena, and still found the strength to give me what I needed. I will never understand how you did it, but I want you to know that you changed everything." Mariana gently ran her hand over the diary, as if Graciela could feel the gesture. "Thank you for believing in me. Thank you for showing me that pain does not have to be the end. Thank you for giving me a new opportunity to see life with hope." She placed the diary among the flowers on Graciela's grave for a moment, as a symbolic offering before taking it back. It was part of her now, a constant reminder of the two women who had transformed her life. As the wind blew gently, Mariana whispered, "I promise you both that I will continue to share this light you left." As she got up, Mariana looked at the horizon where the sun was beginning to break through the clouds. She felt a peace she had never felt before, as if a cycle was truly complete. From that moment on, she knew that although pain would always be part of her journey, love would always be greater. That was what Elena and Graciela had taught her, and now it was her turn to carry that message to the world. That night, at her small table lit only by the soft light of the lamp, she picked up the pen and took a deep breath before beginning. "Dear Mariana of the future," she wrote, feeling the emotion grow in her chest. "Today I understood that pain was never my enemy. It was my teacher, my guide, the bridge that led me to see who I really am. Graciela and Elena believed in me when I didn't, and now it's my turn to believe too." As the words flowed, Mariana made a promise. "I promise I won't let the light they saw in me go out. I promise I'll keep seeing the good in people, even in the hardest moments. I won't be afraid to feel, to cry, to lose myself sometimes, because I know I'll always find my way back." She closed her eyes for a moment, imagining the Mariana who would read that letter years in the future. An older Mariana, perhaps tired, but with the same sparkle in her eyes. When the world seems heavy, read this, and remember, you were made to bring light, not to carry all the shadows. And even if you forget someday, there will always be a new dawn waiting to remind you. Mariana signed the letter with a slight smile, folded it, and placed it inside Graciela's diary. That promise was not just for the future, it was for the present, for every step she would take from now on. On a sunny morning, Mariana went out to the hospital garden and sat on a bench with her diary in her hands. She opened it to one of the new pages where she had written, "Graciela's light never went out. It lives in every smile I see, in every small act of kindness I offer and receive. It lives in me, and through me, it will continue to shine." As she read her own words, Mariana realized that the cycle of pain and hope that had begun with Elena, passed on to Graciela, and was now with her, would not end there. Every action she took, every smile or word of encouragement, was a way of spreading the legacy that had been entrusted to her. A group of nurses passed by her, and one of them commented, "Mariana, you are like the heart of this hospital. I don't know what we would do without you." She smiled, feeling humble, but also grateful. For the first time, she accepted those words without hesitation, because she knew they were true. Mariana held the diary to her chest and looked up at the sky where the sun was shining brightly. The light of Graciela, of Elena, and now hers had never gone out. On the contrary, it was stronger than ever, illuminating not only her life, but also the lives of everyone around her. And so, with a heart full of gratitude and hope, Mariana moved forward, knowing that love and kindness were the greatest legacies she could leave behind. What would you do if you were in Mariana's place? Would you have the courage to face the pain and transform it into something as beautiful and inspiring as she did? Or if you were Hector, do you think you would open your heart to someone who insisted on seeing the best in you? Tell us your opinion makes a difference. Oh, and before you go, don't forget to activate the bell so you don't miss any of the exciting stories we'll be sharing. Each video is a new opportunity to reflect, be inspired, and perhaps see life in a different way. And there's more. Click now on the video that appears here on the screen. It's an incredible story that has already made thousands of people cry and reflect on what really matters in life. Trust me, you won't regret it.